Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Akira News. Kia ora, Chewy. How you, love?
Kia ora, Pat. I am good.
Yeah, going well. What's happening today?
Well, not a lot. Just a standard midweek workday for me. Nothing exciting at all.
Yeah, yes, and everyone is in Dunedin at least is kind of on tenterhooks because we're all going, isn't the weather nice at the moment? And at the same time going, what's it going to be like next week? So you're finding that at the moment?
Every time you say that, you've got to go, isn't the weather nice? And then just narrow your eyes.
Touch wood.
You know something's up.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Oh, look, busy, really is what I am. There's lots of stuff going on at the moment, lots of work to do, lots of clips to make, lots of conversations to have. Speaking of conversations, got kind of a bit of a double hit tonight on the ferries because some just unfathomable information was released today as to how this government informed South Korean company as to how they were going to cancel the ferries. That's one part of the conversation. But the other part of the conversation is actually our hairless leader is in South Korea at the moment. And you think, well, maybe he'll be smoothing some things over. Maybe he'll be, dopping the cat and kind of going, I apologize. Sorry, it was our bad, but, we'll get you on the next one or something. But it's just, apparently, it's just radio silence from the Prime Minister, both to people from South Korea, to the companies and stuff, but also to the media as well. I mean, it's like you're in the lion's den, Mr. Luxon, the place that you screwed over, that your decision screwed over a very large part of their economy, and you're just kind of walking around like it doesn't matter, and you're not going to. We're just not going to talk about this. Joe, I was thinking, when you're in a car park, right? You're in a car park, and you're wanting to come into the car park, and you're wanting to get let in to the car park, and you have those people who just do this as they drive through, and they will not look, and they've seen you, they've seen you from a bit further back, but they sit there like this, purposely not looking that way. Like I don't see you, so I don't have to let you in. That's like the Prime Minister at the moment in South Korea. I don't see. There's nothing to see. I'm just going to keep on walking. Clint Smith is going to jump in and have a chat with us now. He's got some interesting connections. He works with the Maritime Union of New Zealand, who obviously have a vested interest in the ferries because their members are on board the ferries doing the mahi, so we can get across that bit of water and stuff. And finally, Chewy, actually, almost a little bit of journalism done by me this afternoon. I'm being very careful to say that. Almost. Maybe that's about as many letters as I can say out of it. And it was a really small story on One News, but the government's made changes to early childhood education where payment for relief teachers and the qualifications of the relief teachers does not have to be the same standard as full-time teachers. So, of course, you possibly are going to get a whole lot of the for-profit early childhood education centers now employing unqualified people at a cheaper rate to look after your kids. And I've done a little bit of journalism because someone on the news tonight, and we'll show you this story, is a part or is the president of the I've got to get the right one because there's kind of two people, is the president of the Early Childhood Council. And she was very happy with the changes. And I was kind of like this, as someone who's, I went through some teacher training and I know lots of teachers, kind of thinking about paying relievers less and allowing them to be less qualified doesn't sound like a particularly good result. And I find out that the Early Childhood Council is basically it seems like a spokesperson for for-profit childhood education. And the person who was speaking on the news tonight is the owner of multiple centers. So that's the digging around I've been doing. We'll have a bit of a look at that as we go through these. But first of all, hasn't been with us for a while. Let's welcome to the show, Clint Smith. Good evening, sir. How are you, man?
G'day, Pat. How are you?
Doing well. Rocking and rolling. Rocking and rolling. How's the weather where you are? Is it very good?
Yeah. Gorgeous day on Cavity Coast, mate. Beautiful.
Very good. All right. Now, a couple of things we want to have a look at. I think we'll start by me reading part of a story by Tova O'Brien of Stuff. I won't read all of it because I know there's other things we're going to talk about within that, but this might set the scene a little bit for us when it comes to this story. The Prime Minister is planning to avoid any mention of cancelling the $500 million ferry contract with a South Korean company while he visits South Korea. Despite lawyers from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs earlier warning the government of a risk to New Zealand's relationship with South Korea. So remember, that's not just to a company in South Korea, but to South Korea. And the need for, quote, careful and deliberate communications, end quote, with the country's government. If it broke the contract, Christopher Luxon will not be raising the issue when he meets with the South Korean president, nor does he plan to raise it with anybody else he meets with during his 2-day visit to South Korea. The Prime Minister also sees no need for any damage control with the shipbuilder itself. The Prime Minister has no meeting plans with Hyundai or the dockyard as well. He does not expect to raise iRex in any scheduled meetings. This is what Luxon's spokesperson told Stuff. It does feel like the modern version of I can't hear you, I can't hear you, I can't hear you, a little bit. What are your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, well, I should start by mentioning I do some work with MUNS, the Maritime Unions. So just to get that disclosure out there, I'm not representing them, but I do some work with them. And when they heard that Luxon was off to South Korea, they said, "Oh, this must be it. He must be going to sort this mess out, because why else would he go to South Korea if not to talk about this huge issue in the relationship? This, you know, $500 million break fee that's currently been negotiated, but between Hyundai and KiwiRail as a result of the government's decisions." And just flabbergasted to learn that he's not intending to talk at all about it. It's you know, don't mention the elephant, don't mention the war. It's crazy. What else can he talk about there? Like I can't imagine a situation of a New Zealand leader going to a country and not talking about the biggest live issue in the relationship between those two countries. And yeah, it's just chaotic.
Is there precedence for this? I mean, can you think of a time where a prime minister or at least a senior delegate has gone to another country and gone, "Oops, sorry about that one, guys"?
You do have to acknowledge these things and talk them through. I think, you know, whenever there's a complication in a relationship, that's part of being prime minister. You're the country's most senior diplomat, you know, alongside the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And this does matter a lot to the South Koreans. This was a good sized contract for one of their major conglomerates, and they're now saying, "Can we deal with New Zealand?" In fact, everyone around the world is going to be saying, "Can we deal with the New Zealand government?" because they might back out on you, and we're going to end up paying this enormous break fee, but that won't make up for the fact that work has been lost. Those workers who were going to be building these ferries have been sitting idle while that slot in the system has been sitting empty. Yeah, it's just standard diplomatic practice. You have to deal with these things. It's awkward, but then probably you shouldn't make these messes in the first place if you don't want to have to deal with them.
Yeah, and as you were saying as well, this is a diplomatic issue to the highest level. It's not just about New Zealand company KiwiRail, South Korean company Hyundai. And one of the ways we can highlight that is to say the cancellation of the iRex project. If you listen to the audio podcast, we're back on stuff.co.nz now. The cancellation of the iRex project was so significant for Hyundai that the company reported it to the Korean Stock Exchange, reportedly filing a notice that the contract was cancelled at KiwiRail's request and that the shipbuilder will claim for design costs as a part of its negotiation and termination. The Prime Minister doesn't believe cancelling the deal poses any risk to our trading relationship with South Korea. Now, I want to go. He's either naive or he does know. I'm not even going to go. He's naive. He knows. I mean, this is Mr. I'm the businessman and I'll run everything like a business, thinking that shitting on a company is not going to cause issues next time it comes around to do business. I'm also interested to hear from you, seeing you're not speaking on behalf of the Maritime Union, but also you're working with them, what you're hearing from them with their people who are on the boats about what's happening with the ferries at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of uncertainty for the guys, that they were meant to be going to these new boats starting next year. Now they're going to be trying to nurse the existing ferries through to 2029. But the longer the government mucks around at this stage, the harder it is to see how they're going to have replacement ferries in time. They're going to have to design some procurement process, whether that's Q-Rail, whether it's some other organisation they haven't settled on. They're going to have to decide what kind of ferries they want. They've already been through that process and decided that large rail-enabled ferries was the most cost-efficient and beneficial way to go. Then they're going to have to find someone who will take the contract, given that last time New Zealand backed out, and then get them built. And it'll take years and years. They'll be lucky to get it done. They'll be lucky to get new ferries by 2030 at this rate. The process for iRex would have taken 7 years if they'd seen it through to completion. So, it's a lot of uncertainty for the guys. There's a lot of uncertainty for the system and for Q-Rail, because that connection of getting the rail units across the strait is huge. A lot of stuff moves across there. It makes the Christchurch to Auckland route viable, which is the backbone of the whole freight network, and they're worried about the ramifications if that's disrupted. So it's a huge worry for the guys.
It might be my last question. I don't know, but sure, you should jump in after this one. I also just want to bring to attention, you're talking about a break fee. They're talking about a termination fee. We don't know what that is yet. And we don't have a plan B yet either. And how do we, this is going to be a part on the pump and an anchor around their neck right up into the next election. And I just hope that we get the opportunity to have a naming, how they have a competition to name a boat, Bodie McBoatface. And I want to put one of them up for Baldy Lux. I think Baldy Lux, because I want everybody when they're on that second-hand Corolla to fucking remember who made changes to cause them to being on the second-hand Corolla rather than Ferrari, which they could have been on for probably the same price as they're going to pay for the second-hand Corolla. Anyway, no break fees, no alternative yet. Clint, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, the fact is that second-hand Corolla, it's not out there. They, the ferries that we need are quite specific, because they need to be ocean going, be able to handle quite rough weather, but also fit in the sounds and all that. So there's quite narrow specifications. It's basically the ones who are getting designed, or another type, Stenaline does these E-flexes. And Barbara Edmonds asked Nicola Willis about that in the House, and she got very nervous when Barbara Edmonds said E-flexer, because while they're smaller than the ones that Hyundai was going to build, they're actually a lot larger than the current ones still. So you'd still need to build all that portside infrastructure. That was the whole, so-called cost blowout in the first place. The only way they end up saving any money is by not having rail capability, and that then undermines the whole national freight network. So they've been to save a bit of money, they've actually spent $1 billion just to get us back to square one. And who knows how much it's actually going to cost to actually get ferries and actually get all their infrastructure in the end.
They're not going to save any money. They're going to pay the same for a more inferior product. Chewy, sir, yours.
Yep.
I think that this whole release of this story this morning has just shone a light on how incompetent and shambolic this government is over a wide spectrum. They have initially knee-jerked cancelled this program because it had Labour's fingerprints all over it.
Yeah.
and because they banged that drum all the way into the election, that this was just an out of control Labour project. We're not going to tell you why the costs are blown out. We know what they are. We know it's building the port facilities to make them more resilient. But it plays better if we just say the whole project is blown out, that nobody was at the heels of it. And then they've done it against all advice. They've done it via text. 2 texts from the ambassador within about an hour, like 20 minutes before the public announcement. Just utterly incompetent that this was going to have diplomatic level ramifications. And then the whole thing, they're like, oh, well, we're going to find a better way. We're going to save some money. We're not going to mention the fact that it is going to cost us hundreds of millions of dollars, because Hyundai is going to be pissed. Like, I think it shows an absolute lack of statesmanship and diplomacy, and just not understanding how Korea operates. Like, Hyundai is a massive company. Like, all of Korean industry is, I think, 2 or 3 companies that are massively entwined in the state over there. To think that Luxon thinks he's just going to cruise through a couple of meetings and the Koreans aren't going to bring this up and put the screws to him, I think is fucking naive. And if he honestly believes that, he is walking into these meetings completely unprepared. It shows weak leadership. It shows his lack of political experience. And I might be coining a phrase here, he is not very good at this. And we still don't have ferries, and we still won't have ferries
I think that
for years.
Clint, you go, mate.
Sorry, mate. I just got a bit of lag. I think the thing is, does it really matter to Luxon? You know, he's off there having a grand time. He's in Malaysia on a luge for some reason. He gets to sit in go to the fancy palaces, and you know, he spent a lot of time overseas already. About a month so far this year, he's been overseas, and there's just nothing to show for it. And it seems to me, you know, I've seen people call him the Corrie Club PM, and there's a touch of that, eh? Like that. A serious prime minister would be going over there knowing that the Korean president is going to have on his briefing, top of the list, Kirao, Hyundai, Ferry. This is a fiasco. And he's going over there saying, nah, we don't need to talk about that. It's like you said, it's disrespectful to the other side. And yeah, but I think, you know, he's having a whale of a time. He's only got, you know, there's only one journo with him on that trip, because there's just, the media looked at it and said, actually, there's no value in this. He's not doing anything over there. We're not going to spend our limited resources sending journos with him. So there's one journo covering it for the whole gallery.
Wow.
Because it's not really an official state trip. He's just having a good time.
I'm interested, Clint, in your experience from being on the 9th floor with the likes of Jacinda Ardern. Does a government ever say, should a government ever say, hey, voters, I'm really sorry, we got that really wrong? Like, is that advice that one would ever receive as a prime minister or as a cabinet? They should actually go out and obviously not fall on their sword, it's not going anywhere, but actually go, yeah, we muffed up on this. And if that does get said, do you think that would be something that would actually help those guys now? Or would all of us just go, oh, but you still did it, we know why? What are your thoughts?
I think, yeah, when you've made a mistake, especially when you've obviously made a mistake, it's like in life, your best recourse is to say, yeah, I stuffed that up. If you look at, you know, in the later years of Jacinda, when she did start to sort of cover for things or make excuses rather than being straight up, that's when her popularity descended. And Hipkins was never more popular when he came in at the start and said, we've had our priorities wrong, and we've made some mistakes, and I'm writing that. And people respect that honesty. They don't expect perfection out of the government. They expect you to give it a try, though. And we've kind of, the governments over time sort of forget to say, sorry, we got that wrong, I think. But these guys have started off that way, so I don't think they're going to get any more humble.
Hey, look, finally, I don't think we actually touched on it, although we've mentioned it. Maritime Union of New Zealand, you're not here representing them, but what are they saying about the ferries? Like, where are they standing? Because obviously their people are on board these ferries. What are their concerns, or are they just waiting to see what's happening next?
The Munns has been pushing for the modern ferries, ever since it sort of became looking like they might be taken away. They are the best option. The ones that can improve, and they've got all the modern whiz bang, the more fuel efficient and all that. So the idea, I think, for Munns, there's still a glimmer of hope that contract with Hyundai hasn't officially been nixed forever, but they want a good connection. They want good jobs for their members, but they also want a good ferry connection for New Zealand, and so that's what they're fighting for.
I think they'll probably find if there was still a way to get a ferry out of a Hyundai, the price has just gone up. That's probably the only problem. Got to cover a few more risks with this government, and the price has gone up. Hey, Clint, we're losing you a little bit in the Kapiti Coast reception there. The lovely, you got to get that rubber band wound up again next time you get on the internet to make sure it's all working properly. But thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insights. And anytime, us, anytime you want to come have a chat, we really love to have you. And cheers. Thanks for joining us tonight, dude.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
All right, all the best.
Cheers, Clint.
Now, there's another element of this that we're going to talk about, Joe. You kind of teased that a little bit in there, but first of all, let's just head to any of the super chats and chats that you've started to come in. What does Peter have to say? Hey, Hyundai, who's got 2 thumbs and is cancelling a ferry order? This guy. Chris Statesman Luxon, probably. I still think the name for the boat, I'll actually change it. It should actually be the SS Baldy Lux. If it's an more inferior, because I want people to remember when they're out in the middle of the Cook Strait and it's a really rough day and they have a lesser quality boat, who are the people who put them on that boat? I think it's incredibly important. Rajan says the potential of this ferry scandal harming our relationship with South Korea going forward reminds of when Trump pulled out of the Iran deal. Yeah, I just think it's so clear. How could it not harm the relationship? And not just as Clint was hinting at, not just the relationship with South Korea, but so we go to a different country and we say we want you to produce this thing worth $1 billion. They're all going to go, well, how about you pay all of it up front and then we might consider it, because you guys have asked around and fucked around a couple of pretty big companies in the past and we can't afford you to do that with us. Tafari says, cook straight. Our government is straight cooked. The king of the puns. Tafari hits again. It's in the ballot. Says, good. This cost us our free trade agreement with South Korea. Yeah, that may well be the case. Dave says, thank you all, by the way, for your super chats. Korea is big on honor, and we have shamed ourselves. Yeah, it goes on, doesn't it?
It comes back to it, doesn't it? That is that against all advice, they said it needed more touch. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade said you would need to work to get out of this and keep our reputation intact. And the action that followed that advice was, fuck it, flick them a text.
Yeah, we'll read that story in just a sec. But Yeah, I mean, but you know what's going to happen, Chewie. As soon as the word official advice comes in front of any National Party cabinet member, they react to it. They break out in hives, and it has to be taken away from them, because if they see it and you let it get into their brain, you know, it's a death sentence for them. Mr. Arvids sent through a couple of texts. The first one says, "She'll be right, Nats." Yeah, right, all of us. And also, on behalf of decent Kiwis, sorry, Greer. Feel free to imprison him. Not about that, but you know, but so much. And look, there's one other super chat there, which is a bit off topic, but we will put it up now. Planner Walk says, "Ahoy, hoy, Pat. Ahoy, hoy, Chewy. Have you seen Labour's script with police numbers? If so, what are your thoughts on this?" Yes, we did a very large piece on that last week. If the numbers you're talking about are the comparing Christmas beat cops to June beat cops, and yes, we thought it was terrible politics.
I think we'll touch briefly on that towards the end of the show as well, because I think Ginny's made a statement.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen that. All right. There's a few other messages that you've messaged here that you've start here. I was IT guy for the ferries in 2022. Utter fiasco. We needed new ships and port info desperately. Thank you, Brent. It's the second dumbest thing this government has done. Dunedin Hospital rebuild will be the dumbest. And finally, Dr. Atwurzel, he's not doing diplomacy, he's doing management. Yeah, I guess that's right. I was like, we were talking about last night, there's that business philosophy that you never apologize. Because if you apologize, you're then possibly admitting responsibility. If you admit responsibility, possibly culpability comes along with it. Maybe that's right. Maybe he's just going to whatever business model that is.
I think it's a... You see this with these big alphabet, big business and that sort of thing of just like, yeah, fuck it, we don't like this, we're out. As you said, no apology, no justification, no worried about hurt feelings or anything like that. Yeah. It strikes me as a very Trump way of doing business. And the thing is, we keep on saying this, a country and how countries talk to each other is not like business at all. At all. Not one single bit. And if Luxon has an ounce of work that he's doing in South Korea, it'll be going, please promote New Zealand, please buy our fucking cheese or something like that. Yeah. And Korea's a very different country from us. They could just turn around and go, lots of places have cheese, bro. Back on your plane.
I mean, the idea that what our government did forced, I mean, what are the big South Korean companies? Hyundai, Samsung. Probably the two biggest.
There's a third one. But and when we say big, we mean very big.
And they had to inform their stock exchange. The embarrassment that
everything
that they had to inform their stock exchange. I mean, could you imagine that for any other country? Oh, by the way, that country just cancelled an order they put through with Fonterra. Okay, so imagine this. So a country that wants to buy $10 billion worth of Fonterra product, all the infrastructure gets set up by Fonterra, all that kind of stuff, and then people are hired. So there's people with look at the jobs that this has created. It's amazing. And then the country goes, yeah, we're going to cancel that. We'll give you $200 million as a break. We're going to cancel it. It's like you would never want to do business with that country again. It's shocking.
So, Samsung's one of the key builders in wind turbines.
Oh, right.
That might become important later on.
Okay. There is a part 2 of this story. Hang on one sec. I just want to do this.
Sleepy. Sleepy croissant.
Sorry. I just needed that for a second. There's another part of this conversation, which we are still talking about the ferries, because I was shocked when I saw this story on RNZ today. Korea ferry cancellation talks were 2 text messages cancelling this multiple $100 million, billion-dollar project. The cancellation came through in 2 text messages sent within 1 hour of the announcement. New Zealand officials notified their Korean counterparts they were scrapping the Inter-Islander Ferry project via text message less than an hour before the public announcement. That's despite the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade earlier warning ministers cautious talks with South Korea would be required. So MFAT saying, guys, kid gloves, you got to handle this really delicately and gently. Official advice, of course, they ran in the opposite direction. That's what this government does to official advice. Careful and deliberate communications with the Korean government would be required in advance of any public announcement, the ministry said in an 8th of December memo. Asked for evidence of that communication under the Official Information Act, MFAT provided 2 text messages. 2 text messages. This government considers careful and deliberate communication to be text messages. They're basically saying, ending a marriage on a text message would be fine. Sorry, hun, it's all over. Another part of this conversation, which has got a little bit more detail. At 2:38 p.m. New Zealand time on the 13th, less than an hour before Finance Minister Nicola Willis announced Cabinet's decision to cancel additional funding for the project, New Zealand's ambassador to Korea, Dawn Bennett, texted Director General for Asia and Pacific Affairs Seo Ming-young, a high-level Korean official. I'm trying to put that there so I can see it a bit more clearly. Good morning, DG Seo. I hope you are well. I would like to give you a heads up about an announcement that will be made in New Zealand at 11:15 Korea time, 3:15 p.m. NZ time. Could I please give you a call in the next 15 to 20 minutes? The second, much more fulsome message was sent 26 minutes later and 26 minutes before the announcement at 3:04. Hello again, DG CO. As I haven't been able to reach you, here is the information I was going to convey in confidence. You may be aware that Kiwi Rail, a New Zealand transport company in which the New Zealand government is a shareholder, has contracted Hyundai Maipo Dockyard to build 2 new ferries for passenger and cargo transport between New Zealand's North and South Islands. Kiwi Rail had requested significant additional funding. Now let's just pause there, because this is an interesting thing, and I think this has been pointed out a few times, but maybe not as bluntly as this. Kiwi Rail didn't ask for any more funding for the boats. They asked for more funding for the docks. Correct, Joey? Because the contracts were in place.
That's my understanding.
So what they're basically saying, this government, is, hey guys, you know that contract we've got with you and that price that we've negotiated and that price that you're standing by, we're going to cancel that because of another issue we have somewhere else. Nothing to do with Hyundai, another issue somewhere else. So I've just lost my place because I haven't highlighted it. Kiwi Rest had requested a significant additional funding from the government to address the cost escalations in their overall project to replace the inter-island ferries. Yesterday, the recently elected coalition government declined that request for additional funding. This is likely to have implications for the scope of the project by Kiwi Rail. This is still in a text message, remember. What happens next is a matter for the board of Kiwi Rail. We will keep in touch with you as decisions are made. Note that the government's decision on funding is no way a reflection on Hyundai Mipo Dockyard as the contracted shipbuilder. At least this person is trying to be a little bit diplomatic. Only 21% of the escalated costs are associated with the replacement of the ferries. The bulk of the cost escalation related to upgrading harbourside infrastructure in the ports of Wellington and Picton to accommodate the new larger ferries. New Zealand continues to value our close relationship with the Republic of Korea, including our important trade and economic links. That was all the second text message, Chewy. I mean, dumbfounded, just dumbfounded that this is how this government operates.
Like, I mean, say that it was a locked-in decision from the government. Yes, we're definitely going to cancel this project. Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade comes back and says, hey, look, you're going to have to be very careful with this. You're going to have to put on the kid gloves. You're going to have to put on a fucking charm offensive. This is not something that you want to rush into. Put your heads together and go, right, well, we need to sort out what we're going to do before the announcement. This shows that the government thought that the points that they would score by publicly trashing this project was worth more to them than the relationship this country has with South Korea.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how the South Koreans will see it.
Something else, as you were speaking there, just maybe a thing. They didn't run on, we're going to cancel these ferries. They had pre-fu. They had the economic, right up before the election. They never said anything pre-election like, if we win, we're going to cancel these ferries because we can't afford it. Nothing like that was ever said. So surely, so I know someone in the text saying we should cancel this government, but these guys, I mean, everyone has a crack at the other people for, like Labour has a crack at National has a crack for then doing things they didn't promise to do, right? But this is a big one because this is going to impact the country for the next 10 years. And it's going to impact the country in 50 years' time when we have to re-upgrade ferries again because our population has doubled and they're again not fit for purpose, rather than trying to think long term, as you always say Labour does, Chewy, and think about what would then suit us for the next 50 years, not what will suit us for today and have to be replaced definitely in 30 or 40 years from now.
I think this, I mean, there's lots of signs of this throughout this government's decision-making process when it comes to critical national infrastructure, is they don't think long-term. They can't think long-term. They're incapable of it. Like even when it comes to Simeon Brown's big transport announcements of this week, right? Hundreds of billions of dollars being spent on roads.
Yeah.
And his own little fucking pothole fund and all of that sort of stuff.
Fetish.
It has
fetish
to be called a pothole fund, not just a road maintenance fucking fund. This is all stuff that is really important to the transport lobby.
Yeah.
And yet they completely fumble stuff like hospital rebuilds, critical port infrastructure to handle bigger ships, making them more resilient for climate change and earthquakes, two things that this country is prone to. That is solid planning. Building that sort of infrastructure, the only good time to build it is now, and the next best time to build it is fucking yesterday.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any cheaper. So when they quibble on the price of these sort of things, it's like, buy it once and do it well. I won't say this government always thinks too small. They don't think we're capable of managing a project. We've always got to get an outside company in to do it. It's always got to be private public partnership or whatever it is. But then whenever that big project's gone, they shed their workers and they go back overseas. We never build anything to deal with these big projects. That's why we're constantly bringing in expertise from overseas and then losing it. And I think for this government to sort of go, no, we're good at business, we're good at infrastructure, we know those two things are lies. So why is it that isn't something that hangs around their neck constantly, that they keep fucking doing this? Because they seem to be able to keep this legacy of being the party of the business, the party of numbers, for decades in the face of it not being true.
Yeah.
How do you break that? Why do people keep on seeing this? I honestly think this ferry thing is going to haunt them.
Yeah. The anchor, like around their neck.
The moment a ferry breaks down in the Cook Strait, it's on Nicola Willis. The moment we have a huge bottleneck of passengers and freight trying to cross the strait with one ferry out, with two ferries out, or in the middle of a school holiday or something like that, that's on Luxon. It's got to be remembered.
I've just had this thought in my head, because you know how we keep talking about the $3 billion blowout, the $3 billion blowout, the $3 billion blowout. Of course, well, first of all, as we will always say, well, they could have given $3 billion back to landlords and had $11 billion worth of tax cuts and paid for it. But that's actually not entirely true, Chewy, because the $3 billion blowout is not an additional $3 billion. It's now the total is $3 billion. So I wanted to know, what was the price of it? Like, what did it start off being to get to the blowout? And I've only pulled this up while I've been working here, so I can't give you like absolutely what it started off. But in June of 2021, the total cost is now forecast at 1.45 billion, and the project has a net present value of 207 million. So it's going to go to 1.45 billion. I noticed a bit further down here, February 2023. This is before they took over. Briefing advises significant cost estimate to approximately $2.6 billion. Now, if in February of 2023, it was still going forward when we knew, according to this document from beehive.govt.nz, that it was going to cost $2.6 billion, that means the blowout is $400 million. Because it was still going ahead in February of 2023 at $2.6 billion. That would have been in pre-fu. That would have been known if they've got, we all know that Nicola Willis is highly qualified with her English degree to be finance minister, but I'm sure she can at least read numbers in a spreadsheet. So February of 2023, the advice was this was going to cost $2.6 billion, right? And then it ended up costing $3 billion. Now approximately $3 billion. And that's when they cancelled it. So to me, that says the actual quote unquote blowout versus getting built to not getting built. Let's be generous and say it's somewhere between 1.5 and somewhere between 400 million and 1.5 billion. That's the blowout, not 3 billion, because 18 months ago it was already at 2.6 billion when Labor was in and it was moving on. So they haven't indicated before the election we're going to cancel this. They would have known that it was at 2.6 billion. So their overrun is 400 million. I think that's completely fair. That means they're going to dump this whole thing for the sake of $400 million, whilst they're giving 17 billion back in tax breaks and to landlords.
So let's put this into a little bit of context. We're talking about a piece of critical national level infrastructure that would be
roads
designed
of significance. Is that what we're looking at? Roads of national importance,
which would be something that would be designed to last decades, decades, and ongoing benefits. So the port structures in Wellington and Picton, you're talking about near 100 years old, as an example. So you think that what they were building would last at least that long?
Yeah.
Simeon Brown was very proud to announce his big boy budget of almost $33 billion National Land Transport Program. Yeah. So let's say what were the numbers that you were saying? This big blowout for the ferries? Chuck that in there. Is that a dramatically different number?
Well, yeah, it says November 2019 total process 1.4 billion, and then by the start of last year it was at 2.6 billion. So there's $1 billion difference between 2 years ago and 1 year ago, and now there's $400 million difference from a year ago to now.
Cool. So let's say the Transport Minister Simeon Brown unveils a $35 billion transport program. And we get our ferries.
Yeah.
But instead, he's pouring billions of dollars into potholes that there will always be potholes.
Yeah.
It's just short-sighted. It is just short-sighted. And they are daring, like, if God's willing, these guys are a one-term government, do we expect that Labor is going to come in and shit can the pothole program? No, they're not going to shit can these things, because this tit for tat stuff isn't tit for tat. It's just these tits doing it to us.
Very good. I see what we did there. I like it. All right. We're going to move on now, get to some super chats, and then we're going to get to this last story about early childhood education, which terrifies me. I don't have kids of that age anymore. If you're someone who has got kids, nieces, nephews, grandchildren who are going through ECE, this government has just made ECE weaker and less qualified. It's actually a lot bigger story than one news gave it tonight. Thanks to Mr. Arvids for your super chat. Anyone who thinks they still give an F baffles me. They do not care. I'm going to put about us. Thank you, Mr. Arvids. Detective Rogers, thank you for a very generous super chat. Lots of late fees. What's the feasibility? I nearly said feastability. I've been watching Mr. Beast for too long. There's feastables. What's the feasibility of a behind-the-scenes deal between Labor and Hyundai to subtly postpone the deal till next cycle? Yeah, I don't know. Probably not very high, but interesting. They could run on that as a campaign guarantee. Big gamble, though, and maybe bad optics. I mean, probably the reality is, Chewy, those ferries are gone. I mean, whatever had been assembled, because we did hear about some parts being assembled, they're gone. They've been reused or put somewhere else or broken down or whatever. They no longer exist. So, yeah, probably very slim, but an interesting idea.
Like that dockyard is an extremely busy shipbuilding facility, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they'll be pissed, but they will instantly like, cool, clear the docks, get the next project in. Fuck these guys. You know, and this is the thing. If we went cap in hand with them and go, okay, we're going to fix our mistakes, they will absolutely go, cool, you're at the back of the line.
Yeah, for sure.
You fucked us about and we don't trust you.
Yeah.
Money up front, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah. Money up front, and we'll see in 4.5 years where we'll start drawing up plans. Give us the money today, though, please. Citizen Gold says it's not just the relationship with South Korea. No other country is going to trust us on big deals like this for a long time. Yep, I think that's pretty correct. Peter says knee-jerk anti-laborism, not a decision on merit. Yep, very, very true.
Literally just Labour bad.
And
Labour
because,
decision bad.
And because our viewers are the king and queens of puns, Kiwi Bird wanted to say this government is a national disaster. I see what you did there. Okay. All right. Okay. Story from One News tonight. It's a very short story, but I think it's a pretty terrifying story about what this government is doing with ECE, early childhood education, and they're making it easier to have less or lower qualified people working with your toddlers, and they're going to pay them less, Chewy, as well. Let's have a listen.
Qualified early childhood relief teachers could be paid the minimum wage, with the government dropping the requirement they receive a higher rate. Some in the sector are welcoming the change, but others fear it'll lead to a drop in the quality of preschool education. Kate Nichol-Williams explains.
Teachers for our littlest learners are in hot demand. Now the government hopes lowering the bill for relievers will...
So teachers are in hot demand. So what we'll do as a government is, rather than doing a drive on getting people to university and training more of them, we'll just make it so you can be less qualified to be one of them. That's their result.
Give centres more money to hire permanent staff.
Great to see that the government's trying to help us and get rid of some of this silliness that we have to operate with.
Most centres pay qualified relievers higher pay parity rates, from around $27.50 to $46.50 per hour. But come October, they won't have to anymore.
We're shocked that this has happened, because ECE relief teachers deserve to have pay parity with their colleagues who are working full-time.
At the same time, centres also won't have to try find a qualified teacher before hiring an unqualified reliever.
So I correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but my understanding right now, too, is you can have an unqualified teacher, but you need to go on a hunt for a qualified first, and then you can only fill the position if you can't find that. What they're saying is, from now on, don't worry about searching for the qualified teacher. You can go straight to the unqualified ones.
Sparking concern the reliever pool will shrink.
These experienced teachers who have gone relieving will just throw up their arms and say, right, I'm off to Australia.
She says centres might reduce their permanent staff level and hire more relievers to save money.
If we don't have a stable, highly qualified workforce, what kind of quality are we giving to these children, who are often in centres, for 8-10 hours a day?
I'd be very, very surprised that centres would do that deliberately just to save costs.
So the person you just saw there, we'll come back and talk about who she is. But she's basically saying, I'd be very, very surprised if early childhood education centres put profits over the children, as she is the spokesperson for the for-profit early childhood education sector. But she thinks it'd be very surprising if anyone in the early childhood education, and I shouldn't use the word profits, but I am, put profits ahead of the education of the children. We'll come back to more of that.
Deliberately just to save costs.
The Associate Education Minister says the changes won't affect the quality of education. In a statement, David Seymour says no centre can rely on relievers to take the place of permanent staff. He says the changes make it easier to support a centre's permanent workforce. Some calling for relief staff to be looked after, while stretched centres celebrate. Kate Nicol-Williams, One News.
Okay, let's just have a bit of a look here, shall we? Let's go have a look at old mate. Right, Michelle Bosch. Now we are going to be careful with our language here, and we're not going to draw conclusions, but we are going to read out some truths that are online about who these people are and who they represent. So, Early Childhood Council President sounds like a child-centric group of people who are just wanting to educate our children. So, who indeed are they? That's them there. Early Childhood Council. Yep, same one. Is that right? Early Childhood Council. Yep, and she is indeed the president. I think we can go to the about, and we've got people, our people or something. There we go. There she is there, president, right there. So who are they? Who are the Early Childhood Council? Well, a Stuff article from a while ago says this. Government subsidies tied to providing 20 hours healthcare ECE for 3 to 5-year-olds were initially designed for not-for-profit providers, such as community-run centres and kindergartens. But lobbying from the Early Childhood Council and the for-profit sector meant a last-minute change by the Education Minister, Steve Mahari, to include them. Providers quickly found loopholes to charge parents for these anyways, such as requiring minimum enrollments above the funded hours and charging exorbitant prices for these. Since it was introduced in 2007, parent fees have risen by 50%. However, not-for-profit centres charge little or minimum fees. So making this clear, they're talking about this loophole is for the private for-profit providers, the ones that are represented by the Early Childhood Council, right? Not-for-profit centres charge little or minimum fees, and over time, a shortage of government funding. It was frozen for 10 years and then increased minimally, but has not caught up with inflation, has made it difficult for them to survive. So the not-for-profits are struggling to survive in this article, and this article is, you can see it's extensive. Look how massive it is. But it's from 2023, and it's called The Juggernaut, How Childcare Became a For-Profit Business. And we know all about this. There you go. Best Smart got given $242 million in that particular year. So that's who they are. All right. Now, I also want to probably say, actually, we'll go back, because that was one of the people who spoke, Michelle Bosch, and she was pretty happy with the result. Should we listen back to what she said? Let's listen back to what she said. She was
Great to see that.
She was pretty happy with the decision by the government to be able to pay people less and have less qualified teachers in the classrooms. Let's have a listen to what she said again, just for clarity.
Staff.
Great to see that the government's trying to help us and get rid of some of this silliness that we have to operate with.
So that's what she said. Now there was the relief teachers were in there as well. We're going to leave them alone because they pretty much are what they are. The other people to speak were these people, the Office of Early Childhood Education, and they weren't that happy about this. Who are the Office of Early Childhood Education? Well, here they are. The OECE is the lead public advisor on early childhood education and care, representing the early childhood sector in New Zealand, Aotearoa. Our purpose is to support the provision and use of ECE alongside promoting safe and better quality ECE for children and their families and whānau. We place the interests of children and their parents family and whānau, and early childhood education at the centre of our work. Our work includes driving high quality ECE provision. And if you go and have a look at what they're about, values and positions, number one on their values and positional issues is Te Tiriti o Waitangi Indigenous rights of children, the group size ratios, qualified early childhood trained teachers is one of their values and positions, which is now being stripped away by this government for relievers. Children's right to attend high quality, involving parents, men in ECE teaching is one of their things. So they look like they're coming from a place that is really just focused on the children first, everything else second. And you'd have to say, I would think, Chewy, if you were the spokesperson for a for-profit series for early childhood education, then you have a fiduciary responsibility to return a profit to your investors. So the money comes first. Now, one more thing, and this is where we're not going to pass opinion, Chewy, but I will read out. So the lady in question, her name is Michelle Bosch. I won't put that up there. There's no reason to put that up there. But is involved. There. Michelle Bosch is the owner and manager of 1, 2, 3 early childhood education sectors. That's fine. You're allowed to be a business owner. Not poo-pooing on you. But you're a business owner who is also a lobbyist and is happy that people are going to be able to be paid less in your business. Peekaboo is part of her group, and Lakeview Kindy. I'm going to go to the ERO reports for these two places. We're not going to pass opinion. I'm just going to read you a couple of comments from the ERO reports for these kindergartens. This is for Peekaboo Child Care Centre. And I'm just going to have a look at the improvement actions. Peekaboo Child Care Centre will include the following actions in its quality improvement planning. Build teacher capability and collective capacity to use internal evaluation for improvement. Increase the focus of making evidence-based changes to teaching practice and evaluating the effectiveness and impact of these changes on learning outcomes for children, and strengthen culturally responsive teaching practices to support the provision of a rich curriculum for all children. No commentary needed. This is just a one of her. The other one that she owns, I think with her husband as well, which is the Lakeview Private Kindergarten, their area of improvements from ERO to ensure the learning outcomes of Te Whairiki, the early childhood curriculum, are more visible in documented assessment, planning and evaluation of children's learning, and to build leaders and teachers' knowledge of how to do and use internal evaluation process to identify progress that relates to the service's value learning outcomes for children. Now, we're not passing comment on those, but I can say to you, Chewy, that from seeing a lot of ERO reports through my time, what these things typically seem to be saying are your teachers need to be better at using the skills of being a teacher. One could draw the conclusion then that maybe the teachers that they're already using aren't the best qualified because they don't know the system of evaluations very well. And that's the person in that story representing the for-profit education sector who was pretty darn stoked that now finally we can pay relief teachers less and they don't have to be qualified. I'm finished my story now, Chewy. It's over to you.
Maybe that some of the she made reference to the silliness that she has to deal with. Maybe those ERO reports are one of the things that she finds silly.
Maybe.
Look, I've got a couple of close friends that are involved in the early childhood sector, not in the, I guess, for-profit things, but you know, when they're talking about bringing in cheaper, less qualified relievers, I just want to bring out that these early childhood teachers are not fucking creaming it. They're not making the big bucks.
Yeah.
A lot of them have been fighting long and hard for pay parity with other teachers. And I think this is just another way to undercut it. It's getting cheaper, less qualified staff in the door, even as relievers. But then they can go, see, it's not the end of the world. Maybe we should just have less qualified, cheaper people there all the time.
Well, I think as well, and maybe we should go and play this bit of the story as well. I think what one of the concerns is that, you know, they would stop using as many full-time teachers and just start using relievers all the time and then paying them less. I'm pretty sure that was one of the situations. And then obviously, I think her name is Michelle Bosch, isn't it? Said, oh, no, that's not going to happen. Let's just have a listen to this bit. I haven't queued it up properly, but have a listen.
Experienced teachers who have gone relieving will just throw up their arms and say, right, I'm off to Australia.
She says centres might reduce their permanent staff level and hire more relievers to save money.
If we don't have a stable, highly qualified workforce, what kind of quality are we giving to these children, who are often in centres, for 8-10 hours a day?
I'd be very, very surprised that centres would do that deliberately just to save costs.
So one of the groups, the ones that aren't representing the for-profit, are saying what's going to happen. The concern is, now this is passed, there'll be fewer permanent full-time staff and there'll be more relievers. Then the spokesperson, the president of the lobby group for profit ECE says, no, I can't imagine people would do that.
I mean, even before you told me all of that stuff behind her background and who she represents, and that it is literally a self-serving statement to the media with absolutely no context being given to the viewers, that comment of like, I don't think that this industry would want to cut costs is just such a laughable comment. Like, any business out there, if they can cut costs and fatten their profit margin, they're absolutely going to do it.
Yeah.
They're absolutely going to do it. And can I just join two things here? We've spoken a little bit about elderly people spending all of their money on rest homes and extortionate rent, and now we're talking about people making money off our fucking children. That someone is clipping the tickets at both the start and the end of the life cycle now.
Yeah.
And it is because our society has changed so dramatically. People didn't need to put their kids into daycare for fucking hours and hours and hours, because we didn't used to need two incomes to pay your mortgage and to buy groceries. It's just so grinding.
Yeah.
And then it just seems that our regulatory bodies, our lawmakers, various governments just can't seem to work out a way to unfuck this. Early childhood centres should just be part of the education system. That's the whole thing. To be an early childhood teacher, you should be qualified to be an early childhood teacher. You should have the appropriate qualifications. You should meet the appropriate standards, that sort of thing. We shouldn't be sort of going, well, some of these are fine and they're not really for profit, and then some of them are absolutely extortionate fucking robbers that have found a way to monetize farming children because mum and dad have to go to work.
And if they don't have enough ECE teachers, then New Zealand government, pardon me, should mirror and mimic what Australia is doing and start looking for people offshore and giving them an incentive to come here, whilst they're training up new Indigenous people, New Zealanders, to do more ECE teaching as well.
Yeah, it's so vitally important. Like, there's been so much conversation about the government, how our children aren't meeting educational markers and all, achievement markers and all of that sort of stuff. And are they starting looking at 5, or are they looking at the entire thing? Because it seems like we have very much two different types of early childhood centres with very different mindsets about what they're there to do.
I actually saw, just Googling it, a result yesterday. I possibly was going to use it, but I didn't. That there was a release in the last couple of days saying that contrary to all the hand-wringing, New Zealand's not actually doing too bad with educational outcomes, according to the OECD. I'll see if I can find it. Maybe I'll try and bring it tomorrow, because it was like, I didn't read it through yet because I wasn't going to do it, so I didn't get in time to do it in its entirety. But they didn't. There were some people saying that maybe there's a little bit of a scuttlebutt going on from some political parties about that, perhaps. Anywho, you got something you want to share on screen down there, I can see?
Yeah, I mentioned we'd touch on this because we did speak about it last week about Ginny Anderson saying that police foot patrols are down massively, and then using some very different times of the year to come up with that. We criticised her quite heavily that it basically from the point of view that she should have plenty to criticize the government on without kind of fudging the numbers, and it was obvious what they were doing and very clunky and easily battered away by, of all people, Mark Mitchell. Like, if you're gonna set up a fucking smackdown on yourself by Mark Mitchell, you have messed up. So Labour's Ginny Anderson has conceded police foot patrols have increased after last week presenting figures that appeared to show officers were off the beat under National. Her mea culpa came on News Talk ZB on Wednesday morning, with the opposition police spokeswoman saying it wasn't deliberate. Police Minister Mark Mitchell accused Labour of deliberately misleading the public, and you know what? He's kind of right. Which
well, if it wasn't deliberate, it was bloody sloppy.
It's stupid. It's stupid. When we were doing those numbers, it should have been year on year, Anderson said. We took them from when National first came into government to the date, but ultimately I am responsible for how it was done.
Good man, culpa.
Anderson admitted overall foot patrols have risen, but said that was concentrated in urban areas. Again, that's kind of weird. Like, are you expecting an increase of foot patrols in butt-fuck nowhere? They're walking a beat between two paddocks. That's silly as well. She said it was concentrated in urban areas and that there were some decreases in rural parts of the country. Mitchell said it is a lame excuse, and he is again correct, which is embarrassing. Of course, they should have been measured the numbers properly instead of cherry picking, and she got caught out. Absolutely true. Ginny Anderson should focus on the fact that this country has absolutely shocking levels of family harm, and police have been forced to prioritize foot patrols to make the government look good and to make people feel better, and deprioritize mental health call-outs and family violence call-outs. Because that's the choice that's been made. And Ginny Anderson should be marching up and down wherever Mark Mitchell is and shouting that into a bullhorn until he cries. That's what I expect from Ginny Anderson.
Very good. And just so people know, this is the story I was talking about. Actually, it was on Q&A. I haven't seen it yet. And it reads, last year, New Zealand recorded its worst ever results in the OECD International Education Assessment. The test, known as PISA, assesses 15-year-old students in reading, maths, and science. But in a Q&A interview with Katie Bradford, Secretary General Matthias Cormann points out that New Zealand students are still performing better than the OECD average, and other countries are also seeing declines because of COVID-19. Cormann says, however, the country has to take steps to reverse decline. So it's not like a cover-all, like, it's all fine, but it's also a bit of a, there's some information there. All right. I think we are going to wrap up for the night. We'll do some chats before we get there. Speaking of South Korea, get Lydia Ko to ask her father-in-law for a discount, says, because I care. Kiwi Bird, I like Bosch products, but not Michelle Bosch. I don't use Bosch. Do you ever do a power tool of choice, Chewy? Do you go to a particular
household? My household is a Ryobi household.
Are you? Green fella, are you?
I like the green ones.
Yeah, we
okay. No, speaking of Ryobi gang, here's my life-changing advice. Did you know you can get a set of brushes for your power drill and you can clean your shower in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
That has revolutionized my fucking life. I love it.
Very good. We've become a DeWalt family, actually. You buy one, then you buy another.
Ryobi here, we can't talk anymore, but
yeah,
green gang.
It's like you get on the Apple kind of ecosystem, and then everything just connects so much better. Once you start having to get a battery, then you just kind of stay within it. Anyway, Tafari says neo-feudalism lobbyists are the new lords. Tiffany Twisted, who I believe has just become a a patron as well.
Oh, nice.
Parents should give Dad Saves America and Hannah Frankman a watch. Frankman a watch. Dad Saves America and Hannah Frankman a watch. All right. And Mr. Arvid says, I'd like to request a celebration of life segment tomorrow for Kingi Tuheitia and his message of kotahitanga. Rahui Papa had a great interview on Chao with Moana. Yeah, I was thinking about getting some of that. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. as well. Apparently, the succession is going to be announced. Whoever is going to be the new monarch gets announced tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So I'm sure we'll do some of that. And Tiffany says test scores inflation, maybe. There you go. All right, team. It's been a blast tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, I think Kingi Tuheitia, because I don't think it's wrapping up tomorrow, but there's a big part of it tomorrow as well with the announcement at 10 a.m. Maybe I'll try and get someone to come and have a chat with us about it. Maybe I'll try and get a hold of Moana and just hear from the lady herself about it. But that's it for us. Sleepy dog in the corner, ginger beard in the middle. I'm disappointed no one's mentioned my new orange cap, Corpus Christi. It's the Texas minor league team there, but you know, that's all right. I'm okay. Don't do it now. Don't you dare put it in the chat now. Don't, because I brought it up. Don't want to see it now. But we'll see you guys from tomorrow night. Yeah.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting bees from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a war path to run, linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by both Julie and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks to Clint for jumping on board and being a part of what we did tonight. That's it for me, Joey. Anything you want to wrap up with?
There's an excellent spin-off piece about Kiwis fighting in Ukraine. Hunt it out. It's a really good story.
Cool. All right, team. We'll catch you tomorrow night for another edition of Big Hairy News. Live at 9. Hooroo team.
Yes, man. Oh, puppy.